Welcome back, listeners. I have some interesting Reddit horror stories for you all to listen to. With that said, relax, sit back, enjoy, and if you do, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Hope you enjoy. I'm a 29-year-old male. I recently met up with a guy from a dating app. Disclaimer, before I continue, I made a lot of dumb decisions and didn't trust my gut. I've been out of a committed relationship for about 6 years, and out of the dating scene entirely for about 15. I got caught up in a feeling like someone was interested in me and let it put my best judgment behind me. On to the story. We met up to smoke and play video games. The first red flag went up when we were talking on the phone, and he said something along the lines of, "Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you." I laughed it off as someone being aware of the environment around gay hookups and the risks you're taking by meeting up with strangers, and awkwardly trying to ease that tension. Well, the next red flag came up when I arrived, and noticed he seemed out of it. When I sat down, I saw 4 of those 99-cent vodka shots. He had 2 more unopened that he downed shortly after I got there. We hung out for a while, and he seemed like an okay guy. But he repeated and contradicted himself a lot. He tried to make some moves. I was down, but halfway through he just stopped. He made more comments about, "I didn't bring you here to kill you, and I'm not going to kill you." I was still caught up in the moment and pretty stoned, so I brushed it off as more awkwardness. Sometime later, he asked me to give him a massage. He told me he had back problems, so I was careful, and eventually he told me I was doing it wrong. He said we should switch and he'd show me how to do it. We switched, and this is where I realized I needed to leave. He began massaging, but he was pressing down very, very hard and started hurting me. I told him this, and he said something about when it hurts is when you know it's working. I asked him to stop and just lay on top of me. Out of the blue, he asked, "Why don't you care about yourself?" I've got really bad dental issues. I've never touched hard drugs, but you'd say I've got meth mouth if you didn't know me. I'm working on it now after being a very kind dentist, but it's taken me a really long time to do so because I've been turned away from doctors and hospitals when they see my teeth and write me off as an addict. So that's where I assume that question came from. But then it took a really dark turn as he began talking about his sister. He said she was killed by her boyfriend after he invited her to his place for the first time. I didn't say much because I didn't know how to process what I was hearing. Then he said, "Sometimes I think about doing it because I want to understand what was going on in his head when it happened." This sent chills down my spine. I've never felt fear like this before. He was sitting up, weight on my lower back at this point. In my mind's eye, I kept getting flashes of him holding a weapon above my back. I flipped over and shimmied my way out from under him, while telling him I needed to leave. I don't know if he had any other plans or ideas. Losing a sibling is really tough, so maybe that was on front of his mind. But I couldn't deny the alarms going off in my nervous system. I've never felt fear take over my body like that before. After some messages today with really, really weird energy, I told him I wasn't comfortable continuing this, and to please not contact me again, then blocked his number and socials. So to you, Mr. I'm not gonna kill you, let's please never meet again. This happened just under 2 years ago. I was a park ranger for a large wilderness area that I'm not going to specify to remain anonymous, but it wasn't a commonly visited forest, though a lot of other areas in the state were way more popular, even though the one I worked under was a very large and dense, but with little visitation The number of working park rangers was really low. My job varied, but often I'd be trekking up to campsites, keeping the forest clean, or occasionally doing search and rescues for hiking need aid, because people were allowed overnight camping and backpacking. Our park always had several rangers working the graveyard shift, just in case anything were to happen. I worked a lot of in-between shifts, usually getting off at around midnight to sometimes 3 or 4 in the morning. This day I had spent most of the afternoon at a campground in a remote area of the park, cleaning it up and ensuring it was safe and well maintained. I had taken an ATV a good portion of the way down the trail before it got more rugged and steep, and hiked the rest of the way to the campgrounds. While I was there, I didn't see any other tents or people set up at the camp. It was just me. I left just after the sun had gone down, hiking in the dark back to my ATV, then riding it carefully back down to the lodge where I was stationed at. The lodge was no more than a small cabin with a wood stove and a desk with a heavy-duty radio to contact other rangers or authorities with. An hour after I got there, rain started coming down. We got storms pretty often here, so this was nothing out of the ordinary. I brewed coffee and sat at the desk, taking notes of the campground conditions. I was just at a couple hours past when the radio suddenly clicked on and a ranger's voice came through asking if I was there. I picked it up and asked what he needed. The ranger asked if I had seen someone at the campground I was at earlier. I said I didn't see anyone, not even a tent or sign of anyone having been there recently. There was a long 30-second pause before he responded. His voice sounded reluctant, saying he might need me to go back out there and take a look around. He seemed not to be worried about it, but supposedly the ranger station had gotten a satellite SOS ping from someone, and the location of it was on the trail I was just on. I, of course, was the closest one. The other rangers were at least an hour away, so I was on my own for this one. He mentioned he didn't get any text or anything, though, and usually when we get an SOS alert without any follow-up messages or responses, it's just an accident. Sometimes the buttons on those little devices get clicked while in someone's backpack without them knowing, but it's always best just to check it out in case there is a problem. Unfortunately, this time it happened to happen on a night it was pouring out. I grabbed my radio, raincoat, a headlamp, and a heavy flashlight, then left the lodge and started walking. The ATV was at no use in weather like this. It would have gotten stuck before even making it to the trail. I confirmed with the other ranger where the general location of the ping came from, and he said he was 2 minutes up the trail, because it was only one ping. He didn't know which direction they were going in. The walk took almost 45 minutes, which given the conditions was fairly quick. But I did get worried about if someone was out here walking around, maybe an inexperienced hiker or something, because even with my high-powered headlamp and flashlight and familiarity with the trail, it was incredibly difficult to navigate the forest through this storm. The trail was hard to keep track of, and definitely without proper clothing, this could be really dangerous. When I was in the area, I shined my light all around, still continuing to walk along the trail, and suddenly when I moved my flashlight across the forest, something was standing there. It nearly gave me a heart attack because he was really close, just 10 feet off from the trail. The man was completely soaked with long hair hanging down, not even wearing a rain jacket or anything. He looked delirious, but also concerned. I'd yelled through the rain, saying I was a ranger, and asked if he was okay. He didn't respond, standing there in the storm and staring at me. It was then I noticed he had no gear on him. I didn't even see the satellite messenger, which, if he was the one using it, I would have thought it was clipped onto his backpack, or in his hand or something. I waited for him to come toward me and get back onto the trail, telling him my lodge was just a few miles down. But suddenly he just bolted deeper into the forest. He was out of sight within 10 seconds, entirely lost to the darkness and the rain. I quickly pulled out my walkie and let the other ranger know what I found. Someone and of the condition they were in. And this was kind of the point where I had to decide whether to try to follow him out there, which is pretty dangerous, or to wait on the trail. I stood unsure for a couple minutes, talking to the other ranger on the walkie, and trying to figure out what to do. There was a chance this guy really was in need of help. Maybe had been lost for a while, and was just delirious and paranoid. But during the couple minutes I was talking to the ranger, at some point he abruptly said, "Hold on." I waited a minute, and when he came back, he said he got another SOS ping from the same device and around the same area. He said it was just a fourth of a mile east of the last ping. That was directly where I saw the man running onto the forest. It had to be him, but why the hell did he run away just to call for help again? Now further off the trail, I walked a little ways and trying to get my flashlight to reach a little farther. This was honestly the first time in my career being out there that I had been shaken up, enough so to question whether I could do my job. I had this feeling that if I didn't help, I'd be reprimanded, especially if it turned out the call really was someone needing help. I thought either he was delirious and scared, or maybe the guy was trying to lead me to the person that sent the SOS call. So I kept walking in, not really feeling like I had a choice. I walked for 5 minutes, shining my light everywhere and genuinely scared of what I'd find. I kept seeing the image of the guy standing there in the trees, and every time I thought about it, it made my stomach tighten up. And then after a while, my flashlight caught something sitting on the ground, a small device glowing dimly, more so reflecting the light from my flashlight back towards me. I immediately recognized what it was. A Garmin satellite messenger. I knew it because it was the typical ones that hikers go out with, and has a pretty recognizable orange color and shape. Just when I thought, where was the person using it, I heard footsteps sprinting up to my right. I moved my flashlight over and saw that same guy barreling towards me. Not like he needed help, but like he was going to tackle me to the ground. He was so committed that even after I moved aside, he stumbled to the ground, still trying to grab onto me. I froze for a second, somehow still unsure what the hell was going on, before he started getting up, and all it took was one clear look into his eyes to get me to start running away. His eyes almost looked lifeless, like he was in a fatigued state, but they had this eerie darkness in them. Hard to describe, but I knew the guy was dangerous, and definitely had been using the SOS signal just to kite me out there alone. He probably even saw me on the trail earlier, knowing I'd be coming out there alone. I ran for longer than I ever had, sliding and tumbling down some parts of the trail. I used my walkie to tell the other rangers that I thought it was all a setup, and eventually got back to my lodge, locking myself in. It still took another 10 minutes for the ranger to make it, and another 40 for an actual officer to arrive. Due to the severity of the storm and possible danger that I ran into out there, the whole search was put off until the morning when it was still raining, but the visibility was a lot better. They found the messenger right where I'd last seen it, but no one was around. The guy I'd seen out there was gone. What really gets me is he didn't look like he had anything, let alone a safety satellite messenger. Which makes me wonder where he got it from, or who he got it from. Those things are pretty expensive, so if he didn't have any other hiking or backpacking gear, it'd be really strange if that was the only thing he had. But I worked there for a while after that, and nothing ever came up. No more sightings of him, no unreported SOS calls. I left almost exactly a year after it happened. I guess never really fully recovering mentally from it. Constantly thinking about that night over and over. I just know I was really close to something horrible, and the thought of being out there again if something similar were to happen was terrifying. I don't think there ever will be, because the whole thing was swept under the rug, but if there's an update, I'll let you know. I'm a delivery driver for a local pizza joint. I turned 17 just a couple months ago and decided to get a job just to get some money and have some work experience. This seemed like one of the easier jobs, and better than standing around behind a counter being bored all day. Every night did sort of feel the same though, often even driving the same routes and delivering to the same houses for all the regular customers. Only nights that felt different were the weekends, because a lot of random people would order and our store would offer delivery until 2 a.m., so I worked extra late. This was on a Saturday. There was a decent-sized storm overhead, which in a lot of other jobs I'm sure meant the day would be slower. However, not with this job. People didn't want to go out, so they had some incentive to order for delivery. At least it made good money on tips, though. It stayed very busy all the way until 11 or 12-ish. Then it finally died off a bit. I actually had time to walk into the shop and take a break, while we had no orders. I never really had anyone to talk to, though. All the other guys at the shop were older, like 30s or 40s, except for a few college kids that weren't working that night. So of course, when the next order came in, they sent me out to deliver it, even though the other delivery guy had been hanging around the shop, talking for a whole hour. I just did my job, though, taking the order and getting in my car. It was to a street name I didn't recognize, but the GPS said it was 20 minutes away. I figured I'd drop it off, then take the long way back, just to kill time, and maybe not have to do any more deliveries for the night. I started heading over. As you expect, by the time of night, almost nobody was on the roads. In this context, it seemed kind of eerie, but at the time always felt it calming. The neighborhood this house was in was pretty standard for houses around here. It was mostly wooded houses far back in the trees, with long driveways connecting to the street. Nothing too secluded for our town. But I guess compared to the kind of homes most people live in, these would seem like they were way out there. I turned down the driveway and parked at the end of the front of the house. It was a large, older home with not a single light on, but as I was getting the pizza ready and about to get out, I saw a curtain move upstairs, like someone had just been watching me out the window. I see that a lot actually while doing deliveries for obvious reasons, but this time it felt a little more creepy, because I couldn't actually see them since it was so dark in there. I got out anyway, and started walking up to the porch and was quickly confused. There was another box left right on the porch, a pizza box from a different local shop that I only heard of a few times before. I didn't see any cars leaving the driveway, or even in the neighborhood as I pulled in, so it must have been there for a while, which was kind of weird. Even looked like the box was soggy, like all the moisture in the air from the rain had seeped into it already. I stepped around it and knocked on the door. I needed the payment, so I couldn't just drop off the pizza. I heard something shift in the house as soon as I knocked, and then it went quiet. Didn't hear anything for a whole minute. Then I knocked on the door again. This time it stayed quiet. I knew someone was in there. So after a minute, I pulled my phone out and called the number on the order. A few seconds later, I heard a phone ringing inside the house. It sounded like it was just on the other side of the door, like someone was standing right behind it. But still, no one opened up. I was very confused because I knew I'd seen someone looking from the window upstairs. And now with the phone, surely someone was there and had ordered the pizza. I was starting to get a really uncomfortable and eerie feeling. I thought about just leaving the pizza on top of the other one and leaving when suddenly a voice called out from just behind the front door. Door's broken. Bring it around to the side porch. It was a woman's voice, but a harsh, gnarly sound to it. I took a couple steps back, then walked around the house. There wasn't an overhang on the side of the house, so I had to walk through the rain with nothing to keep me or the pizza dry. Around the house, there was a side door that looked really worn and unused. If the other door was really broken, wouldn't this one look like it being used? I mean, there were even cobwebs or spider webs and dirt all over it, and the outdoor light above it wasn't even working. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, already getting soaked. I didn't hear anything inside the house, though no footsteps coming up to the door or anything. I started looking around, getting an intense feeling that something was watching me. I could barely see anything without the house lights on. This feeling grew worse over the next 30 seconds, and I just knew something was seriously wrong about this. I dropped the pizza box and made a run for my car, getting in and leaving right away. During the drive back to work, I thought the other pizza box on the porch might have been the other delivery guy, having had something similar happen. He probably knew better or had seen something else that told him to just get out of there. So with whatever plan those people had not working out with the first delivery guy, they had to order again from a different pizza shop. Clearly they didn't care about the pizza anyway, leaving it out there on the porch despite being home. The only problem is that I didn't figure out what the plan really was. Best theory I've come up with is that she wasn't alone. Someone else was there, maybe out in the trees, and bringing me to the side of the house would be sure there was no witnesses to do whatever was going to happen next. I actually still work at the same pizza shop, but never had anything happen even close to as disturbing as that, and I hope I never will. I want to thank you all for listening, and with that said, as always, stay depressed.